Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, US blocks UN Security Council resolution vote put forward by the UAE for humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. 13 of the Council's 15 members voted in favor of the ceasefire, while Britain abstained. Tensions mount in South America as Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro unveils new map to include disputed territory of the oil-rich Esequibo with Guyana. The United States on Friday vetoed a proposed United Nations Security Council demand for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the conflict between Israel and terrorist group Hamas in Gaza. 4 earlier drafts presented since the war broke out were rejected by the Security Council. 13 other members voted in favor of a brief draft resolution put forward by the United Arab Emirates, while Britain abstained. The US had offered substantial amendments to the draft, including a condemnation of the October 7th Hamas terrorist attacks that killed 1,200 Israeli people and in which 240 people were taken hostage. Jody Jacobs reports from New York on this.
13 UN Security Council members voted yes, the United Kingdom abstained, and the United States vetoed the vote. The United Arab Emirates, who tabled the resolution, which was co-sponsored by more than 90 UN member states, says it's extremely disappointed and that it will redouble its efforts to call for a ceasefire. The US Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, says while it supports durable peace, it cannot support calls for an immediate ceasefire. This, he says, because Hamas has no desire for peace or to see a two-state solution. The vote on Friday here in New York comes after Antonio Guterres deployed a rarely used Article 99 of the UN Charter, calling to the attention of the Council any matter which in his opinion may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. The Palestinian permanent observer Riyad Mansour says this is a sad day and that it will not stop calling for a ceasefire and to stop the killing of Palestinian people. Mansour says millions of Palestinian lives hang in the balance. Every single one of them, he says, is sacred and worth saving. Israel's UN ambassador Gilad Erdan did not address the Security Council after the vote, but in a statement said that a ceasefire will be possible only with the return of all the hostages and the destruction of Hamas. Meanwhile, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, the UN's humanitarian wing in Gaza, has written to the President of the UN General Assembly to inform him that the organization's ability to continue delivering its mandate in Gaza has now become very limited. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has told Council members here in New York that the eyes of the world and the eyes of history are watching, demanding that the international community do everything possible to end the ordeal of the people of Gaza. Jody Jacobs at the United Nations in New York, reporting for DD India.
The Biden administration has asked Congress to approve the sale of 45,000 shells for Israel's Merkava tanks for use in its operations against Hamas in Gaza. The potential sale, worth more than $500 million, is not part of President Joe Biden's $110.5 billion supplemental request that includes funding for Ukraine and Israel. It is under informal review by the Senate Foreign Relations and House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committees. The move would allow Israel to prepare for emergencies given the high tensions in the region, one of the U.S. officials said. More than 70 U.S. lawmakers on Friday demanded the governing boards of 3 of the country's top universities remove their presidents. Lawmakers cited dissatisfaction with their testimony at a hearing about anti-Semitism on campuses. In the letter, the Republican representative Elise Stefanik said, and in fact, Democratic Representative Jad Moskowitz demanded that the Board of Governors at the Harvard University, the University of Pennsylvania, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology oust their presidents or risk committing an act of complicity in their anti-Semitic posture. Penn President Liz Magill, Harvard President Claudine Gray, and MIT President Sally Kornbluth, who all testified before a U.S. House of Representatives committee on Tuesday, have come under fire from their school's Jewish communities for their handling of clashes between pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian contingents since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. Calls for Megill's and Gay's resignations in particular have mounted in the days since their testimony, during which they declined to give a definitive yes or no as an answer to Stefanik's question of whether calling for the genocide of Jews would violate their school's codes of conduct regarding bullying and harassment. It was signed by 71 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Let's get you updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict now. A meeting of the International Coalition of the Return of Deported Ukrainian Children was held in Kyiv on Friday. 72 representatives of different countries and international organizations participated in the meeting. In the meeting, Ukraine said that arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin and country's Children's Commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova for unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia by the International Criminal Court facilitated the process of their return home. Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner Dmytro Lubinets expressed hope that the new warrant arrests would follow, stressing that many more Russia's representatives were involved in the deportations.
After 2 arrest warrants were issued by the International Criminal Court for Putin and Lvova-Belova, it became easier to return the children. You can see the results, they emerged. We want International Criminal Court not to stop issuing arrest warrants. Not just these 2 people took part in deportation of Ukrainian children. According to our information, many representatives of the Russian Federation did it and keep doing it.
The Ukrainian Parliament approved 3 bills necessary to start European Union accession talks on Friday, including one on national minorities' rights. President Volodymyr Zelensky described the bills as a key step in Ukraine's application to join the 27-member EU.
Today, the Ukrainian Parliament has adopted the necessary laws in line with the European Commission's recommendations in the fields of anti-corruption and national minority rights. The conclusions of the Venice Commission, specifically regarding national communities, have been taken into account. We expect that Ukraine's efforts will be duly appreciated by the leaders of the European Union and that the corresponding European promises to Ukraine will be fulfilled.
Ukraine's environmental protection and natural resources, Russian Strelets said that 1/3 of the country is mine territory, which is 170,000 square kilometers of total size of Ukraine. Strelets added that the country is taking measures to speed up the demining process.
Fortunately, we have a huge mine territory. Today, the mine territory of Ukraine is more than 1,000 square kilometers. And the government of Ukraine is do everything which is possible to speed up the process of demining the territory, because we can't speak about restoration of our wild nature, about our environmental, without demining the territory.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro unveiled on Friday a new map of Venezuela, which shows the disputed territory of Esequibo amid growing border tensions with Guyana and the country. Tensions escalated over the weekend when voters in Venezuela rejected the ICJ's jurisdiction and backed the creation of a new Venezuelan state in a referendum. Guyana has questioned the vote's legitimacy, put its armed forces on high alert, and said that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is disregarding International Court of Justice's orders about taking no action to change the status quo in Esequibo.
Let's see where on the map we will celebrate tonight. Long live the complete map of Venezuela. Long live the homeland. Long live all the Venezuela.
The U.S. has announced joint flight drills with Guyana following an increase in tensions with Guyana's neighbor, Venezuela. It comes amid a border dispute over the Esequibo region, an oil-producing area claimed by both the countries as their own. DD India's Latin American correspondent, Mary Trini Mena, has the report from Caracas.
The United States has expressed its support to Guyana, a move that is further complicating the dispute with neighboring Venezuela. This week, the U.S. Embassy in Georgetown announced flight drills to oversee military operations in Central and South America. Venezuelan officials say it's a provocation, while another neighbor, Brazil, has called for a peaceful resolution. Earlier this week, Venezuela also sent military personnel to an area close to the Esequibo territory that is mostly an isolated jungle. Last weekend, Venezuela held a referendum that approved the creation of a new Venezuelan state within the disputed area. Just days after the vote, President Nicolás Maduro ordered state companies to exploit oil and gas in the Esequibo region, and also ordered the National Assembly to create a law to prohibit Guyana from granting permission to take oil in that territory. Guyana has reported Maduro's comments to the United Nations and the International Court of Justice, which is in charge of the dispute. Venezuela, however, does not recognize the jurisdiction of the International Court, saying the judges are biased. The long-running territorial dispute began over a century ago, when the borders between the former British colony Guyana and Venezuela were demarcated. The area in question is larger than Greece and accounts for about 2/3 of the country of Guyana. Both Guyana and Venezuela claim ownership of the region. The border dispute has gained importance in the last decade after the government of Guyana approved the extraction of oil in the claimed area. Analysts say that amid the Venezuelan government's low popularity, President Maduro is using the Esequibo issue to achieve national cohesion around the government. Venezuela issued arrest warrants against 14 people linked to the opposition, accusing them of treason and participating in a transnational conspiracy related to the Esequibo. Maritrini Mena in Caracas, reporting for DD India.
North Korea is determined to launch more spy satellites in the near future to collect information on the military activities of its enemies, state media KCNA said on Saturday. The satellites will be modeled after a Malagong-1 satellite that Pyongyang launched in November, which governments in the United States, South Korea and Japan said violated the UN Security Council resolutions. North Korea has been criticized over its ties with Russia by South Korea, Japan and the US, who say that Pyongyang is providing armed support to Moscow in return for help advancing its military capabilities. The national security advisors of the United States, South Korea and Japan are holding a trilateral meeting in Seoul on Saturday. The trilateral cooperation has become more important as the rule-based order faces a threat around the world, as per South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol on Friday. North Korean state media said that Pyongyang was determined to launch more spy satellites soon, calling space development its right to defend itself. Seoul's National Security Advisor Cho Tae-yong held bilateral talks with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Japan's Takao Akiba on Friday. They agreed to boost cooperation to curb North Korea's nuclear threat and missile provocations. A French court convicted 6 teenagers in connection with the 2020 beheading of history teacher Samuel Paty, whose murder shocked the country. The court found 6 teenagers guilty of lying about the content of a classroom debate that sparked anger at the teacher, who showed students caricatures of Prophet Muhammad during a discussion about free expression. Among those on trial was a teenage girl who had allegedly told her parents that Paty had asked Muslim pupils to leave the room before showing the caricatures. Paty was killed and decapitated outside of a school in a Paris suburb on October 16, 2020. And up next, we take a look at other stories from the world which are making it to the headlines. The Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, united in the Christmas Carol service hosted by Princess of Wales at Westminster Abbey. The festive church service recognizes those who have gone above and beyond to help others throughout the year. To surprise both fashion insiders and members of the public, the French fashion house has descended on England's 3rd most populated city for its latest Métiers d'Art event. The annual event showcases lace, embroidery and other crafts produced at Chanel's complex of specialty workshops on the northern outskirts of Paris. Ileana Marquez, a 27-year-old mother and teacher, made history when she was crowned Miss Venezuela 2023. She's the first mother ever to win the coveted Miss Venezuela title in the pageant's 71-year history. She also became the first winner under newly relaxed eligibility rules that allow mothers and married women to compete. New York City parks have displayed dozens of wreath interpretations since 1982. This year, the tradition continues with over 30 handcrafted wreaths that were displayed at Arsenal Gallery in New York. The free exhibit will run until January 4th next year. Up next, a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live, we get you ahead an exclusive interaction with UAE ambassador on the COP28 that is currently underway in UAE and India's participation at the forum. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to interact with beneficiaries of the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra via video conferencing today. Indian men's hockey team to toil hard against Canada in the ongoing Junior Men's Hockey World Cup in Malaysia.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political, and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. A quick relook at the top stories once again. US blocks UN Security Council resolution vote put forward by the UAE for humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. 13 of the council's 15 members voted in favor of the ceasefire, while Britain abstained. Tensions mount in South America as Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro unveils new map to include disputed territory of the oil-rich Esequibo with Guyana. IOC clears some Russian athletes to compete in Paris 2024 Olympics as neutrals. Approval limited to individual sports. No team entries permitted. COP28 is currently underway in UAE with talks on climate finance, climate action and much more. Prime Minister Modi recently concluded his visit to UAE, where he made a pitch for India to host COP33 in 2028. Ambassador of UAE to India exclusively spoke to DD India correspondent on COP28 and more. Let's listen in.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently concluded his visit to UAE where he went for the COP28. Also, he held a bilateral meeting with the leadership of UAE. Obviously, we know that COP28 is underway in UAE and the presidency is conducting the COP28 successfully. Besides that, also there are a lot of things on the table in terms of climate change, climate action, climate financing and more. And to talk more on this, we are joined in by the ambassador of UAE to India, and we'll talk more and obviously get to know more on what has the conversation at COP28 been about. So thank you so much for joining us, and we are glad to have you on DD India. First of all, we definitely know that Prime Minister had a visit there, and where he also announced that the COP33 will be held in India in 2028. What do you have to say about it? We'll start with that.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to host it, and I'm sure if you do, it will be a successful one, just like we have done with the G20. And obviously I wish India all the best. We have had nothing but support from India during our COP28 presidency. And when the time comes, and from now until then as well, India can count on the UAE support.
What do we have to say about in terms of the meetings that are going on in COP28? How do you assess it by now? What has the reactions been, especially in terms of climate financing?
Well, they have been fruitful and productive. So far, there is an amount of $57 billion US that have come forward in terms of commitments and pledges. The loss and damage fund has been operationalized with $700 million US, with the UAE committing $100 million US to the fund. 130 countries have signed on the Food and Agriculture Declaration. 120 countries plus have signed on to the Climate Health Declaration. India has signed on the Climate Finance Declaration as one of 13 countries who have done so. So all in all, we have had quite significant progress in COP28, and I'm sure that this momentum will continue.
And when we are looking at, putting the voice of Global South in COP28, because these are the developing countries, and India has also made sure that its priorities under the G20 and its G20 presidency, which just concluded, was also that bringing the voice of Global South on the table.
This is also why we have had meetings with the G20 Sherpa. We made sure that we are fully committed to the tangible outcomes that have come out of the G20 and that those can be taken forward in the COP28 presidency. Not only that, but if you look at COP28, you would see that this is one of the most inclusive COPs that have ever been hosted, and one of the highest youth participations. There have been commitments not only from countries, but also from companies.
And when we actually look at the bilateral relationship between India and UAE, we know that high-level visits have caught up momentum, and we also do see that there was a bilateral meeting between UAE leadership and Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
There is a special bond and a very good friendship between the two leaders. Obviously, COP28 was and is the most important topic at the moment that was discussed between them, but they also discussed other ways and other fields through which they could advance the bilateral relationship between the two countries, whether it's trade, economic, or any other sector.
What do you have to say about, since the SEPA concluded, how is the trade momentum building up?
It's been increasing, so we are now at $50 billion milestone in non-oil trade. We are at more than $80 billion in bilateral trade that includes oil. Investments have been flowing in both directions. And trading in local currencies have added to this momentum by making it easier for traders, business people, and investors to settle their trades and to settle their balances in both local currencies.
We saw the Paris Agreement, we then saw the COP in Glasgow, and then different places. What is, in a sense, we can say the COP28 presidency trying to achieve with this?
I've said this before and I'll say it again. We make things happen in the UAE. As you see, and as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most inclusive COPs. It also is a COP where countries have come forward with commitments and pledges, making sure that we all have a common way forward to mitigating climate risk and making sure that we secure the future of our future generations. Not only that, but even when we talk about companies, we've had 50 companies sign on the oil and gas decarbonization charter. And so all in all, it seems that we have managed to garner commitment, we have managed to garner a significant amount of interest to be able to push the climate agenda forward.
We know that Vibrant Gujarat, the Global Summit, the Investors Summit is round the corner. And obviously UAE has a big part to play.
UAE is a partner of Vibrant Gujarat. I know that I'll be in Vibrant Gujarat, and I know that whenever Vibrant Gujarat takes place, the UAE participates at the highest and most senior level possible, and you could always count on that. Gujarat is our #1 trading partner among all Indian states, and I believe this is something that will continue to be the case because of the flow of investments from the UAE into Gujarat in the various sectors. Food security is one of them through the Food Parks project under the ITU2 umbrella. There is also managing ports and handling cargo in those ports.
I have another question to ask in terms of the Hindu temple that's garnering a lot of eyeballs, and there is a lot of excitement in people here in India as well about the Hindu temple coming up in UAE. What do you have to say about it? When will we see it getting inaugurated?
I visited the temple in September last year before I come to India during its early stages of construction, and I believe it's going to be inaugurated in the first quarter of 2024. The temple not only is something that Indians are looking forward to seeing, but also people in the UAE are looking forward to seeing it as it stands a testament of Indian hand craftsmanship as well as a token of acceptance, coexistence and tolerance in the region.
So here we had the ambassador of UAE to India speak to us on diverse issues. Obviously, COP28, because UAE is the presidency. We also spoke about the Vibrant Gujarat summit that's obviously round the corner and will be held in January next year. Besides that, also the momentum that is being constantly built up with high-level visits from UAE to India and India to UAE. With camera person Kumar Datta and my colleague Sunny Kalra, this is Meghna Dev for DD India from New Delhi.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also interact with beneficiaries of the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra via video conferencing today. The program will be joined virtually by thousands of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra beneficiaries from across the country, with more than 2,000 vans, thousands of Krishi Vigyan Kendras and common service centers from across the country connected during the program. According to the latest survey of global approval ratings by the Morning Consult, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has again emerged as the most popular global world leader with a solid approval rating of 76%. This is the highest in the world. Prime Minister has been consistently topping the list over the last few years. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador secured the second position with 66%, and Swiss President Alain Berset holds third rank with 58% ratings. The International Olympic Committee has cleared some Russian athletes to participate in Paris 2024 Olympics, though they will not be participating in any athletic sports but will be present as neutrals, according to the President of World Athletics. This comes in the wake of ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, and prior to that, Russia was barred from participation for implementing a state-sponsored doping program that resulted in bans from many competitions, including the Olympics. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.